Of all the things I've seen on the battlefields of the frontier, the pilot is the true dominant force. Fast and agile.
Well, that's a reset. Can you beat Titanfall 2 on Master as a pacifist? First up, the pilot's Gauntlet. And since the Gauntlet starts off with a cutscene and a basic tutorial, I'm going to use this time to go over the rules of the run. Number 1. I cannot kill or damage any enemies. 2. Anything that gives a hit marker counts as damage. 3. Allied kills don't count. 4. If the objective explicitly tells me to kill something, I'm allowed to kill it. To start off the pilot's Gauntlet, I immediately ignore Lastimosa before learning about wall running, sliding and double jumping. Then comes the first small problem of the run. In order to teach you about shooting, there are 5 targets you need to hit. Problem is, these targets give you hit markers. Hit markers count as damage, and damage resets the run. Weirdly, the hidden EPG on the wall doesn't give you hit markers for these targets, so I grab it, shoot the targets and continue. Then I run the Gauntlet, call in the Titan and crash a simulation. On to BT-7274. There are a couple of extremely difficult missions in this run, and BT-7274 is the first and maybe the hardest. The mission starts with me having to get through a few waves of spectres to reach a cutscene trigger. I let my infinitely spawning allies soften up the waves, which goes badly, so I just try making a run for it, which takes a few attempts, but eventually I get through. Lastimosa then dies when I loot his corpse, giving me a cloak I can activate, better movement, and his data knife. The data knife is huge for the run. It lets me hack spectres, which means I can deal damage while being a pacifist. BT tasks me with finding a battery to feed his sick addiction, so I go off on a little adventure to get one. When I get back, however, there are 3 grunts guarding him. These 3 grunts are the first major roadblock in the run. It's the first time the objective doesn't tell me to kill something, but the game won't progress until I do. Making them damage themselves with their own grenades is my only option here. There's no other way for me to remove them from play without killing them myself, so I hide behind a rock, guess when they're about to try and throw a frag, cloak so I don't die, and run right up into their face midway through their throw animation. This makes them throw the grenade at their own feet, which then damages them. I then run back to my rock while being shot at. Do this correctly about 10 times without dying, and a grunt dies. Die, and I have to start from the beginning of the encounter. Over 6 hours of attempts later, the final grunt commits accidental Sudoku, and I can progress. The second battery is harder to get to, but easier to install. A few tries of running through all the enemies, and I'm back at BT. Luckily, instead of grunts this time, there are spectres. I simply cloak, hack a spectre, wait for the cooldown. Rinse repeat a few times, the area is secure. Now for the second hard part of BT-7274, the BT tutorial. Most small arms fire in Titanfall 2 can only damage a Titan's shields, and cannot damage its hull unless you hit the weak point. In the campaign, this works slightly differently. Enemy small arms fire can damage BT's hull even without hitting the weak point on his face, but they do much more damage if they do hit it. This means that the best strategy in the BT tutorial to minimize incoming damage is to only face the enemies when you're holding up your vortex shield, and face your back to them when it's on cooldown, denying them the bonus damage from crits. Once I'm past the tutorial and can move around as BT, I get myself killed. For some strange reason, when you reset back to this checkpoint, BT gets a full heal until needed for the last part of the mission. For the finale of the mission, a Brute Titan drops, and you have to kill it to proceed. Annoyingly, the objective doesn't tell me to kill it, so I have to employ some unique tactics again. Unfortunately, there isn't a way for you to make the Titan deal self-damage consistently, and I wasn't about to spend another 6 hours on this mission. So I figured if I was to bail from BT and he killed the Titan, that's not against the rules, as BT has his own morals, none of which include pacifism. BT kills the Titan, screen fades to black. Blood and Rust is next, and is actually surprisingly easy for pacifist runs. The mission begins with the first large-scale Titan fight of the game. Luckily, saving allies is optional, so I pretend that I didn't see them and run through all the enemy Titans, being careful not to step on any grunts. BT then gets horny for the tracker cannon, and does some very non-pacifist things while I disable the sledge flow and have fun on a water slide. This guy then body blocks me a couple times, but eventually he lets me through, and I quickly parkour my way across the next area, trying to break the grunt's line of sight where possible. I meet up with some friendlies who forgot I'm a pacifist and thought I was there to help them. I run through all the stalkers and through a couple rooms to end up with a sledge fight. This fight is extremely difficult to win on Master, even without being a pacifist, so I employ a speedrun strat, Sludge Skip. Sludge Skip abuses the embark animations for BT, as well as a slightly strange hitbox for the sludge waterfall, and is done by jumping down into the sludge on the left of the waterfall, before running around its hitbox and wall jumping up this corner. If done fast enough, BT will be waiting for you at the top, and you can embark to get through the fence. Now for the Kane fight. The objective reads defeat Kane and his minion, which means they're both fair game. After handing out a beatdown with BT, I grab Kane's radio and the screen fades to black. Now for Into the Abyss, which has some challenges, but is nothing compared to BT-7274. I start the mission off by grabbing the Scorched loadout as BT. Then there are a couple of corridors filled with grunts and stalkers. This section is meant to show you how powerful BT is against his enemies, but for a pacifist it becomes a minefield. At one point it's not feasible to try and get through them all, so I disembark and run through as a pilot, letting BT do his thing behind me. The next room has two titans guarding it, a Tone and a Brute. The Scorched loadout works wonders against Tones, but doesn't fare as well against Brutes. I decide to make BT use the Expedition loadout against the Brutes, which is by no means amazing, but it gets the job done for now. Then to get into the cargo bay, you have to kill 3 more titans to open the door. 2 Brutes and a Tone. BT struggles in titan fights against more than one enemy, so I split up the titans the best I can, swapping BT between the Scorch and the Expedition loadouts based on who he's fighting. Eventually, BT kills all 3 of the titans and I can proceed. I then activate the cargo lift, and BT gets grabbed by a manipulator arm. I use the momentum from the cargo lift to get through the next section with grunts quickly, so that they don't kill me. Go along some pipes and rocks and reach the first moving platform. I then use the swing that the platform does to fly through the next combat area. After this platform reaches a specific turn, I once again use the momentum to throw myself to another platform, again skipping a combat area. This jump is maybe my favourite in the entire game because of the sheer amount of speed you get. This platform then takes me to the Simulation Dome, which was another roadblock of the run. I had to use another speedrun strat to skip the dome, with the inventive name Dome Skip. To do Dome Skip, you have to be fast. You have to be in position by the time the Simulation Dome environment changes. First, you take the moving platform up into the dome before running to the far side of it. For some reason there's a gap in the collision of the wall here, so you can just crouch and walk through the wall and end up on the outside. From there, you have to get to the opposite corner of the dome and stand on the ledge. When the dome environment changes, you'll hear yourself drop down and the loading screen will trigger. The next sequence is relatively straightforward. I do some parkour before running through the next area and meeting it with BT. When I get in BT, I hover, so that I don't step on any prowlers, and run to the exit. In the next area, there are some grunts that seem to be in the floor, and I kept stepping on them by accident through the floor. Eventually I realised that if I waited, they move and I could continue. Now for Ash. Like Kane, the objective tells me explicitly to kill her. The main problem is that there's a lot of infantry in the area, meaning I have to be careful where I shoot. Eventually I kill Ash without killing anything else, use my core to fly to the mission exit without stepping on anything, and the screen fades to black. On to Affecting Cores. The first section of Affecting Cores doesn't really have any combat, so I can just run through and grab Anderson's helmet. Once BT's analysed the helmet and made me a zipline to the security services building, the mission truly begins. I start off by waiting for a stalker to force open the exit door to this room, before pushing past it and continuing. The 2 grunts that spawn when this door opens caught me off guard and nearly killed me here, but luckily when time shifts they just disappear somehow. I run through the corridor, get the wrist mounted device. Thanks to the device, I can now shift to whichever time is least deadly, making the next section a breeze. After listening to Anderson talk about space and time, a door conveniently opens and I can move on. The next section gave me a bit of trouble, because the grunts kept on blocking the door so I couldn't get through, but I got through eventually and I'm rewarded with another Anderson log. A little bit more time travel based shenanigans and I reach yet another Anderson log, where he gets bodied by a grunt and fucking dies. I meet BT outside and have some issues getting to the panel to extend the bridge, but once I get back outside, the last section of the mission is a breeze. I run through some stuff, scan the Ark, and that's the end of the mission. All in all, I think Affecting Cores is the easiest mission in the run. Next on the list, the Beacon. The mission begins with some stalkers attacking some friendlies. While the objective does say that I should kill them, the friendlies can handle themselves, so in the spirit of the run, I let them do all the fighting. After Cole talks to me about the Ark tour for ages, I'm tasked with getting one. I start off by doing some fun parkour, before attempting another speedrun strat, Kill Room Skip. Kill Room Skip uses a softball boost, as well as some rather difficult movement. I'm not good enough at softball boost, so I give up on the strat and go into the kill room. The kill room is full of drones, stalkers and spectres, and the room must be cleared, at least mostly, before the exit opens. This means that my best option is to hack the Spectres and let them kill the other enemies for me. After about an hour of optimizing the technique, my friendly Spectres kill enough of the other enemies that the exit door opens. After some more parkour, I get the Arc Tool from Marvin. I don't know if this ruins the Pacifist one because he looks really sad, but I continue anyway. After a bit of puzzling and even more parkour, I get back to the grunts and turn on the reactor. Fun fact, even though the friendlies hype up the danger of this reactor, it can't actually ever kill you. Next I'm tasked with getting another component of the beacon from another beacon a few hundred meters away. Why we don't just use that one instead, I'll never know. This is where you'll start a grunt call. BT then yeets me, and I use that momentum to skip as much combat as possible. Because of how fast I went in the previous section, I'm now ahead of the enemy spawn for the most part, meaning I can avoid combat entirely if I'm fast enough. Eventually I reach the crane, move it to the right, and get the targeting module. When I get back to BT, there's a combat area where I'm supposed to clear the area before BT throws me up near the top of the dish. But in certain spots, it's possible to chain jumps and get to the top of the dish yourself, so I use that to get to the top and wait for BT to clear the area. Once I replace the targeting module in the dish, I head back to the friendly grunts and get squished by a Reaper. That's fun. The Richter fight begins, and since the objective tells me to eliminate all IMC threats, I can clear the area of Reapers and Titans without breaking any rules. Finally, I head inside and broadcast a message to Sarah, and the mission ends. Trial by Fire begins, and I rush forward to try and spawn all of the enemy Titans, but their trigger seems to be kill based instead of position based, so I kinda get my ass handed to me, and end up just waiting at the top of the hill for my allies to clear through the enemies. Since Sarah is immortal, she does the majority of the clearing, and eventually the door opens and I can continue. The next section is a series of long corridors that end at an elevator. However, the elevator doesn't open until Sarah is also on it, so I have to survive while she gets to it. After taking the extremely hidden load point, I get access to the North Star kit, which isn't that useful for now, but the tethers can distract enemies a bit. Luckily, I don't have to wait for Sarah for the rest of the mission, so I just run through as Ronin all the way to the end. The start of the arc is basically a long cutscene, with pretty much all player interactions being completely optional. When I get onto the Malta, the mission truly begins. If you're quick enough, you can reach the exit to the first room just as the enemies come out the door, meaning you can sneak in without having to deal with them. Fun fact, you don't actually have to kill the first and second guns in this section, only the third one has to die. I start off the section by getting to the final platform while avoiding aggroing as many enemies as possible. I'm not sure if this actually helps, but the plan was that hopefully they wouldn't activate all the stalkers. Once I'm at the final platform, I hide and let the 6-4 kill all of the unnecessary enemies. After the area is clear, we hop along Sarah's ship and into the final pilot combat area of the mission, which I can just let my allies clear. Gates then proceeds to not understand bulletproof glass, and I line up the Malta with the Draconis. Viper thinks he's got me in the pipe 5x5, but little does he know, the objective demands his death along with his Scorch friends. For some extra BM, I kill Viper using the Scorch loadout, which ends up being a mistake. Viper fights with BT a bit, ripping his arm off but losing his hatch in the process. I kill Viper, do some arc-based shenanigans, and get trapped inside the Draconis. The fold weapon is the final mission in Titanfall 2, and is just as hard, if not harder, than BT-7274. After Slone kills BT like some kind of monster, the mission truly begins. I grab the Seer kit, open the door, and get almost immediately gunned down by grunts. This is going to be hard. For some reason, in the fold weapon, you don't have access to your cloaking, which makes grunts extremely deadly. If they maintain line of sight for more than a couple of seconds, you die. Half an hour of routing later, and I reach this wall run section, which proves to be really hard because of all the grunts on either end of the wall run. To survive, I have to break their line of sight constantly, not fall off the walls, and once I'm past the walls, I've got to get past the grunts at the end. It takes me a while, but I get through after some good luck. Once I get to the wide open area full of grunts, I instead go on these pipes on the right hand side and use them and some other scenery to hide myself from the grunts. I get over this building, which is definitely the intended route, and call down FS-1041 and put BT's data core in it. Now for the Titan based portion of the mission. For the most part, you can simply run through the enemies here, but you have friendly air support which can kill some stuff if needed. Once I reach this door, I use the final speedrun strat of the run, which I honestly don't know if it has a name or not. I'm just going to call it Door Skip, because that's probably what it's called if it does have a name, knowing how imaginative speedrunners are with their names. Door Skip is a simple skip that, well, skips this door. For some reason the door's hitbox doesn't extend all the way up to meet the door frame. It's high enough to stop a Titan, but not a pilot. I embark BT and crouch walk through this corridor. For the most part, the grunts here don't get in my way, but the spectres cause some issues with their archers. Sadly, they didn't get the memo about splash damage, so they end up killing themselves and a majority of the grunts. Now for the Slone boss fight. This fight is so bad to do as a pacifist, because it's the only boss fight in the game where the objective doesn't tell me to kill the boss. This means I have to get BT to kill Slone, as well as all of the other stuff she spawns. This is extremely difficult. It took me over 3 days of running this one fight to finally get it. I have over 18 hours of footage of just this fight. I start off the fight by dashing behind this box, setting BT to the North Star loadout, crouching and disembarking. I then try to distract the Brute Titan while BT hits it a few times. When BT gets a couple hits in a row, he effectively stun locks the Brute. If he misses a shot, it can all go very badly, very quickly. I used the North Star loadout here because I found it to do the most damage to non-shielded Titans, and also means that BT doesn't go into melee combat, because he sucks at it. If BT gets into melee range, especially versus Slone, she'll stun lock him and he will die. Once the Brute Titan is killed, I then fly BT up into this weird little spot where he can't be punched, and where he also has a pretty good angle to shoot thermite at Titans. The first phase of Slone is probably the hardest, purely because of the amount of damage you need to do to her before she phases away. But eventually, BT lands all of his thermite shots and she decides to use her core in the middle of a thermite pool. Once she phases away, she spawns a Tone and a Scorch. This is pre-nerf Tone, with the huge splash damage on the tracker cannon, as well as a damage bonus because I'm a master. It accidentally kills me while shooting BT. Did I mention that there aren't any checkpoints in this boss fight unless you clear all the enemies in the room at once? Well, BT can't kill the 2 Titans quickly enough to get a checkpoint, so that means if I die I have to start from the beginning of the fight. Eventually I get back to where I was originally, and manage to avoid death by splash damage. BT eventually kills off the 2 Titans, but by this point Slone has joined the fight again, meaning I don't get a checkpoint. I spend most of my time here grabbing batteries, to give to BT if he gets low health. After Slone phases out the arena again, she spawns a handful of Reapers. I'm not actually sure if BT is just really good at killing them, or if they despawn when Slone phases back in, but they were all gone when she did. I dodge a couple of laser cores in BT, before letting him do his thing on his little pedestal again. I spend my time grabbing batteries, but this time some spectres spawn in here carrying batteries, which gives me something else to do for a while. While I'm distracted by hacking spectres, BT apparently did a lot of damage to Slone, and I get back to him just in time to witness Slone stubbornly laser core while stood in the pool of thermite. Again. Slone falls, I celebrate for a bit, and then open the ejector. Blisk then gives me a ticket to Disneyland, BT sacrifices himself to build the fold weapon, and I escape Typhon with Sarah and Barker. I can now say, with confidence, that yes, you can beat Titanfall 2 as a pacifist. Was it worth it? No. The planet blew up, killing everyone anyway. I've put a lot of time into making this video, and if you've made it this far, I'd like to think you've enjoyed it. So if you would hit the like button, I would really appreciate it. Subscribe if you want to see me do more of these weird challenge runs, and if you have any ideas for runs, make sure to leave them in the comments section. Thanks for watching.